I think this is episode 31. I don't know if that's right or not, but we'll go up in an update. So episode one, or potentially episode 32, is now upon us, guys. Welcome to the Ascended Podcast. It's Monday. Daylight savings hit last week, and I'm still adjusting because it's really dark out when we do this now. So it feels like it's like bedtime almost. I'm gonna have to start waking up earlier to go to the gym, like in the morning before the day starts, just so I have the energy. Because I have to go after this, and it's gonna be very unmotivating. That's why we got to get ourselves up for it. But Anthony's also joining us tonight. Still no tagline. Yeah, you just need like maybe I'll play a jingle when you.
Starter to win the call.
You need a catchphrase, I think.
Chat, blow us up with some catchphrases for me.
And yeah, we're back with episode 31. So tonight we're gonna be talking about a little bit deeper level things. We've been talking a lot about our AI tool Nova that we're launching pretty soon, and it's gonna be on the App Store. We're still working through a lot of bugs with that. It's development work is not easy, guys. It is frustrating. You have to have patience. You have to not want to pull your hair out a lot, but it is rewarding when you get to see something being built. And Nova is getting better and better. I would say not necessarily every day because we've been hitting roadblocks, but every week we're seeing considerable progress. And we're going to talk about something I think is really important, not just for that, but for anything you guys might be working on right now. It's the invisible force that's kind of running 99% of your money making decisions, your mindset. And we do a lot of this talk in various, sub portions of our episode, but I really want to focus on kind of that as a main topic today. Yeah. So tonight, I don't know. I want to kick off the conversation, and I want this to be a conversation. Obviously, you guys can drop your comments in here and stuff like that. But what do you think are some of the subconscious traps out there keeping people our age in the money mist, I guess, or unable to get out? What are some of the things that they hear or are told to do with their money and their mindset around it that keeps them stuck? You got to pick a couple big ones.
Yeah, I'll just pick a couple that I've noticed are hard for me to explain to people so therefore that means that they are programmed to think this way. Saving money for the future, number one. Like everybody, you get told, just put your money aside, save up for that car, save up for that house down payment, save up for whatever. And I know a ton of people, a lot of my friends and my parents included, that's how they still view money, is like something that if you can just put aside, every month and have it, like, oh, then you have this lump sum. That's how you become rich, is by saving. Not correct. I'm sure we could talk more about that, but that's one. Another thing would be how people are told they should spend their time. And I mean like years of their life from, we kind of go through and it's kind of mainstream actually, this concept now. People are kind of understanding that grade school is sort of like the academy we go through to shape us into workers. It's not really meant for anything else. Like it kind of stifles creativity to be given standardized testing. And then you're in a competition constantly with your classmates who can know the most about this random subject that doesn't really have anything to do with the real world. For the first 18 years of your life, and then you're told you're supposed to go to college next, because otherwise how are you going to make enough money to survive, and have kids and do whatever it is that your parents did the last 50 years. So that sort of frame of reference for like what's societally acceptable, or socially acceptable rather, for what to do with your life up until the age of like 20. I think those are probably the two biggest things I think that keep people from ever actually understanding what it takes to succeed past just like, that's the thing too. Like people's definition of success is for the most part just working a job till your retirement age, and then you have your Roth IRA, and then you just live off that, and that's it. Working is not what I want to do my whole life. At least not on somebody else's project, I should say.
It sounds like the big theme there is kind of just trust, is what you're kind of saying, like to trust the system. And you feel like it's harder to trust the system in general. I mean, the news trending on Twitter and all that stuff right now is that they just came out. Trump wants to launch the 50-year mortgages, basically where if you took out a mortgage now, you'd be paying it until 2075, and you'd be saving about $200 a month from your mortgage to add 20 years to it. It's just when things like this keep coming out, it gets harder and harder to believe that our best interests are at the heart of the system. Because you do the math on just an equation like that, and you find out that a $400,000 house is going to cost you 3 times that amount in the long run, which it already costs you about twice that amount when you factor in for the modern day interest rates and things like that. And it's saying, well, why if clearly the math's right in front of us and we're not being rewarded by the current situation we're in, And a lot of times it feels like the problems that we're, addressing aren't the ones that are impacting most people. I know this, like, the budget too that was just passed, healthcare still wasn't necessarily figured out. There wasn't an actual plan for a lot of people that were struggling with that stuff. So just like a lot of the news things coming out, it just seems to be going its own way. Another fact I researched, that actually was kind of my point on this, is that cryptocurrency, as volatile as it is, as we know, is now beating trust in the bank itself, banks, major banks, by under 30s adults by 62%. They favor it over banks. So the majority of people would favor keeping their money in crypto than a bank. And that's from Gallup, which is probably the most credible source of information out there. And that's this year they did that statistic. It's not a fad, it's kind of a full trend change or major shift in the population from the same system that trained you to stay small, like Anthony said. So I think a lot of this with trust comes a factor of responsibility, because if you choose to trust in someone, like say a marriage partner or a relationship or a friend or a business partner, whatever it is, then you're also willing to accept responsibility for that person, that outcome, or the lack thereof, right? So if it goes wrong, that means you're also willing to accept the risk with that reward. And so I feel like nowadays trust is wavering because a lot of people don't have the capacity to bear the bad result of it going wrong. So people are just going out and taking less risk or putting less trust in institutions in general, which honestly is a major economic shift. And that means that as a nation, as a society, we can't innovate, progress the way we're supposed to be, the way we've been leading the world for the last 100+ years. And how do you think, seeing adults do this, seeing your parents, like for people maybe in their teens or early 20s do this, how do you think that's impacting this next generation? When your parents have to make this shift into holding on to what I have instead of, putting my money into the market, things like that.
How do I think people saving money instead of using it in the market, that's what you're saying, affects the next generation?
How do you think the shift in trust in institutions among adults that have children is impacting the next generation?
Well, that inherently means that their children are going to take on that same viewpoint. I don't really know specifics. I think broad scale, it's going to kind of cause the next generation to call for a different solution than what we were raised up with and that what our parents have done and used their whole life, which inherently is going to be another massive change in the lives of our parents, people that are in that generation or age range. They have to kind of like adapt to, which doesn't take well for a lot of reasons. Like you look at advancements in technology, like people that are older still don't even really know how to use or integrate with that. And like it's kind of gets to phases where maybe they bought an iPhone, maybe they use the internet, but like AI, like they probably know nothing about that because it's just not, they're nearing the end of their life and these new things are coming out. It's like they don't have the capacity almost that with it being raised upon these things would otherwise help you to have to use them and integrate in them in your life. I think it's I don't know specifically what that's going to equate to, but I do know it's going to call for some sort of solution to come out, or series of solutions, or maybe hopefully it's not just one centralized solution because that's what we have right now. Hopefully, people kind of, and maybe this current generation that's forced to losing their trust actively is enough for the generation after them to sort of figure out solutions on their own, and then they kind of be shared amongst the people and spread out instead of just one centralized system.
Interesting. So what is that? What is the result of that then as this, simple output?
People start creating and living for themselves again instead of relying on every platform, every food service, every manufacturer to do everything for them. I mean, if we, because it starts with financial institutions, but financial institutions are tied to everything else. Because like if people are trusting the institutions to make them more money in the back end, or at least to keep their money safe, but if it's not safe, then they got to find somewhere else to put it. Some other things to buy, I guess. I don't know. I think I'm getting lost in my own response.
Yeah, you kind of lost me at the end there too, man. I understood the first part of what you were saying. The thing that we're both touching on for you guys listening is just scarcity. And the thing the plan for this podcast tonight, I wanted to expose the three, in my opinion, biggest subconscious traps that are keeping most of you guys broke. And I wanted to show you kind of the playbook around that. The first one that I had written down, and Anthony probably didn't know I had, was scarcity. And that's why we've kind of naturally just went that way at the conversation already. It's kind of makes sense because it's the biggest thing people think about. When you're scared money don't make money. So if you're don't even have, the money to keep the bills paid or to keep the lights on, or you're losing money in the markets, which has been happening a lot recently, with the recent few months we've had. You're not in the position to then put excess out, right? We don't give from a position of scarcity. We give from a position of abundance. We also don't invest from a position of scarcity. We do it out of having some extra money to begin with. And so now, right, the buying opportunity, like Anthony Abs, you were talking the other day, for like Bitcoin is great, but a lot of us already have our money in this stuff because we were expecting it to be great from the start, and it didn't go that way. And so, like, you can't keep buying the dip, right, when you run out of funds. And if it keeps dipping, that's technically more opportunity, but you can't take advantage of that when A, you've already taken enough risk and it feels scarier to go deeper, and B, when you run out of money to begin with. And it seems like in this economy, both of those things are happening. Your brain evolved in caves, like cavemen, right? $100 kind of feels like life or death for you if you're younger, I would say. The result is that you hoard most of your cash when the market's tough, you avoid risk, and then you talk yourself out of investments that compound. And now the scarcity mindset is that I need to accumulate, and that means putting it away, kind of like acorns for the winter, right? Ant and the grasshopper. But in the real world, the average 20-year-old, is seeing now a $97 course that could make them $10,000 a month as a lever, and they think I can't afford the $100 that cost me to get into this. And so a lot of them just miss out. And part of me thinks that that's kind of the goal. Part of me thinks that we have too many people trying to innovate, try to be entrepreneurs, and it might be power players at the top. There might be a big conspiracy. It might just be the system trying to reset itself and say everybody can't be the 1%. And so the system is naturally getting hard because nobody wants to work anymore. It might just be that too. But I will say that 80% of millionaires and Gen Z millionaires are first generation. They are self-made. This new generation is doing it for themselves. So these people are managing, like on social media, a lot of them are real people, and they are breaking this scarcity script. You can too. So, I mean, Anthony, when you see somebody stuck in scarcity in general, okay, like what do you think is the one thing that they need to get over to be able to make it from the scarcity mindset to the abundance mindset, or like in a position where they feel comfortable investing? Like, what do they have to go through in their head a little?
I think it kind of comes down to, I don't know, I would say it comes down to your belief in like yourself and your own ability to, let's say you lose everything, like to make it back, or to work hard enough to a point where it's inevitable that you do succeed. I don't think many people think like that. I actually really still struggle thinking like that, where I talk about things as if I'm hopeful they happen instead of as if I'm making them happen. So I think in a situation where there's not much physically else you could do, because of the scarcity. I mean, besides maybe you'll get another job, but let's say you're already working, 12, 14-hour days. There's not much more you can do to like maximize the actual dollars into your bank account. The only thing you can really do is focus on internally how you view the dollars that are tools coming in your bank account and your ability to multiply them. Because if you were truly confident, you truly believed in yourself as an entrepreneur, as Caleb and I, are kind of experiencing throughout this process of developing Altura, like you'd be okay making that risk for time or money, because you had the full confidence that it was going to pay off.
Confidence, that's such a big thing too. And the people that do make it, right, I think most of the people that are motivated or ambitious enough, I feel like they're really hard on themselves. So to be able to get that confidence means that you have to kind of overcome that, like, I'm not good enough, right? I need to do more, right? You have to be willing to just be ready to go. And even if you aren't fully ready yet, like there's a balance between like pushing yourself without trying to be a perfectionist, right? And I think nowadays everyone's told that like there's no room for failure. Like everything's so hard, you don't want to be a burden on anybody else. And everyone has this kind of like, what do you call it? Type A type thing, right? Where you need to have it done perfectly before anything's ever ready to go. And that's another factor I think coming into. I think the most successful people come from the people that were initially the most afraid of failure. They just happened to manage that and then did a 180. Because the fact that you're scared of failure means that you care about the end result. And I think a lot of times you need that to happen first before you go out. Do you think that I'll start when I'm ready kind of saying comes out a lot in people? And do you think that plays into it a lot?
Yeah. You could switch that word ready for anything at this point. Like I'll start when I'm not tired. I'll start when I have more time. Ready would just be an umbrella term, but I think everybody kind of thinks that way. whether or not you actively understand that that's what you're doing. Like everybody kind of says that. Let's say for working out, like I'll do it when I feel energized. I'll do it when I've slept well. You can apply it to anything, but I do 100% think that that's something you're gonna have to overcome in order to break the chain we're talking about.
Yeah, and this is actually a perfect lay into point number two. Point number one, again, if you guys missed it, was scarcity. Like not thinking there's enough money to go around, not thinking there's enough opportunity to go around, so you're scared to take risk, and the market and macro conditions, especially today, are not making that easy enough. That is probably the biggest trap. But what Anthony and I have been just talking about now is kind of pushing you to the second point, which I think is procrastination is used as a safety net. I think that's the second big factor trapping people in nowadays. They procrastinate because they know failures in abundance now because it's so hard to succeed in so many types of investments. They see the market crashing, they see crypto crashing, all this stuff. They don't want to be a failure, especially when there's enough going out already. So they just avoid risk. And I think these can kind of go hand in hand with each other, as I just explained. But readiness has always just been a myth. It's just when you say you're not ready, I want you to know that that is fear in disguise. You don't want to admit to yourself that you're scared, so you're saying I'm not ready. And that's another word of repackaging that so you can actually ingest it. But if you told yourself, I'll start when I'm not afraid, that wouldn't make sense, right? Because you're always in some way, if you're doing anything substantial, you're going to be afraid. So if you know that there's no end point where you're not going to feel a little bit of a gut check or a little bit of fear doing something meaningful, then why are you waiting now? You see that to that like logic flaw? So the behavior then as a result of that is you plan for weeks and you execute for days out of that week and then you pivot, right? And you get 90% of the satisfaction of calling yourself an entrepreneur by showing the progress of you planning everything out. And then when you're in the trenches, DMing people and actually launching it, that might last a week and then you're done. But you love the idea of setting up the LLC and saying you're in this business and all that stuff. But when it's time to execute and you hit your first wall, you're like, okay, this business doesn't make sense anymore. But in reality, the whole time, if you would have just spent that executing, you would have overcame that flaw. And I think that cycle is repeated for me many times until I had to get over it. But that might be for me my personal bigger fear or bigger trap than the first one. But you need a plan to get out of that mindset flip. Anthony, somebody, and I'm sure this happens in fitness a lot too, but what do you think has been like the fastest or maybe most substantial kind of mindset flip you've seen before in someone who went from like, I'll do it later to let's get after it? Like, have you ever seen a good example of that happening for yourself or someone else? Or...
Yeah. Yeah, you said you think it might play well into fitness as well. So I'll just kind of use my example for my own personal journey. But fitness for me went from like a thing that I didn't quite understand, or was kind of putting off because I didn't want to take the time to go do the thing or wake up early, or do anything inconvenient to get it done, to the thing that I can't live without doing now. Like I don't feel normal. I feel off. My day doesn't revolve around, when I go to the gym, but that's like the one thing I am sure to plan every single day. When you're asking like how that happens, or if you just wanted an example, but for me, kind of
that why what are the biggest factors that help you get over that and help you say this should be pretty this I'm kind of giving you an alley-oop because I think there's a really good answer to this, but I'm also curious to what you have to say. But what do you think someone needs to say, I don't know if I'll be able to do this, to I'm ready to go? What resources, what things would they need in their environment?
maybe other people to bounce off of, maybe your own self-discipline. I'm sure that first one was the alley-oop you're trying to get me to say.
Yeah, I mean, you like being part of a team that wants to get shit done is gonna make you want to get shit done. Look at the Navy SEALs. Like, if it was just one, if they were lone operatives, would they be anywhere as scary as a unit, right? Because no, you don't get through the shit unless you have brothers and sisters on your team that are doing the same thing. We both learned that just doing basic training, right? And that's stuck with us, I think, this whole way. And so you need a coach too. That's why you pay coaches. And AI is great, and that's honestly what we've been building with Nova too. But you also need the people, which is what Altura stands for. Nova's we've been working on very important ways to point out the details. But at the end of the day, you need people to motivate you and get you to execute on it. And so when you combine that with our space that we've created, it kind of puts the biggest two fixes together. Half the time, I think a lot of people don't necessarily. I think there's a lot of people that are comfortable by themselves. They're introverts. Maybe they don't have to have that factor, but they still need to know what to do. Like, and a lot of times being around people who are doing the same thing, right? Like I go to the boxing gym, I don't know how to, throw a 3-punch combo, but there's people right next to me on boxing bags that do that like as part of the warm up. So they give you the plan. And that's also motivating me because I see that these people know how to do it too. That's like the human psychology factor that most of us don't realize. You can't just go lone wolf this. Even if you do, you got to know the routine from someone else. You can figure it out yourself, but why would you ever do that if your goal is making as much money as possible and you know that there's cheat codes or tutorials to get there quicker? That doesn't make sense. So Nova, our AI, it talks to you guys daily. Naturally in the background, it learns for me my 5 biggest flaws or areas I need to improve it. And then it calls me out and we'll talk about those. And I say, I learned I over plan, right? And I under execute. And then Nova helps me figure out exactly what areas we should be executing, recommends tasks for me to put in my calendar, and then helps you, book sales and things like that because it's focused on execution. Most of the time, what I call it is just a handhold factor. Like you need somebody to hold your hand to get through a lot of stuff. I know your wife has that like cooking channel, right? Did she ever have to like ask you for some advice on that, with video contenting, or did they ever give her some advice on pushing videos out, or vice versa? Did she ever give you advice on like your fitness account and videos?
I think I cut out for like the last like 30 seconds of what you just said for me.
Did you I said the handhold factor is a huge part of that. Like having somebody that is literally, think of rock climbing, right? It's just on the next rock up and it's reaching out to you. They don't have to be, they're not honestly a help like Iman Gadji. And I say this a lot. So I kind of criticize him because he's standing at the top of the mountain, like throwing a 5-foot rope, being like, okay, come on, it's kind of up to you. But you kind of need somebody that's one rock over, that's saying, hey, it's doable, it's realistically achievable. Because I'm not all the way at the top saying, you need to be here. I'm just 1 or 2 steps ahead, helping you get, over a really important milestone. Because again, somebody like Iman Gadji is not going to know, where that one crack is halfway up the mountain. Because for him, it was so far ago that it doesn't even seem relevant to him. But the guy that just got on the other side of that knows how to cross that specific gap. And that's why you pay for coaching and resources like that. So I said to you, is there ever a time where, you and your wife, I know you both have kind of your own social accounts that you post on. Do you ever help each other with like content and figuring out, little tricks to make and post videos or feedback on that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. You should see our DM feed. I mean, it's just constantly filled with like people's advice that are even further steps ahead of her and I. That are saying like things that are trending, how to use certain aspects that are of, I don't know, editing softwares to make a better quality video. And it started out mostly with like me. I'm good at like doing the thing in the video. I was never that good at figuring out how a way to make it presentable. So in the beginning, when she didn't even have her account, she would kind of have feedback for me and criticisms to better construct better quality content that looks more presentable. And then once she started doing her thing too, like I had learned a ton of, tips and tricks about how just the algorithm in general works. And so I was able to help her kind of figure out and be like, yo, this is way too long of a post. Nobody's watching more than like 5 seconds of this, way more views or something like that. So applicable to pretty much every facet of my life right now. What we do, 10 times harder. I don't know what's going on. Work out 10 times harder when I have my boys to work out with. It's since we didn't incepted, like done everything better when it's with a group of people. It's like the analogy, you and I talk about this sometimes too, where like 2 horses does more work combined than if you just added the work of a single horse, times 2. It's just the way it works. Like that's just undeniable.
Yeah, because there's just like there's technically an equal and opposite reaction, right? But at the end of the day, like most of the time, it's just that you were never really fully activated. So it seems like there's this magic formula where two, I forgot what it was. It was like Clydesdales or whatever. Could pull like 10,000 a piece, but can pull 30,000, when together, but something like that. But at the end of the day, they just weren't activated. Like they could have done that from the start, but you're not usually in an environment where you feel motivated to get there. Right. And so you become the sum of the people around you, as they say. And I think that this leads us perfectly actually into, I just looked at my notes. This is perfectly trap 3, is the identity kind of lock because of that. I just held a bottle on the screen while you were talking. Do you remember what kind of bottle it was?
Coke Zero, empty.
What about, do you know what color my watch face is?
I think it's blue just from how much I've interacted with you.
Okay, so you were paying attention to the details, but you had to observe them first. And then you had to think about it, right? Because it wasn't fresh in your mind. But,
Right.
now you're looking out for those needs. You're like, what is he going to ask me next? What other stuff did I miss out on? Because now you're paying attention to it. It's like if I said, tell me everything in your immediate room that's like red, right? Or some shade of like red, orange, or whatever. You could probably pick out a few things in your room that have that tint to it. I hear this saying, I'm just not a money person. I'm not investing person. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy, you guys. Your brain is then going to filter for what is red, what fits that category to prove it right, because our brain is wired to help us process reality, and it's processing the reality that your brain first senses. It's either confirming or it's denying its existence, right? That's how it works on a behavioral psychology level. If I think the world is aggressive and there's predators in my area, my brain highlights on, and then my body stays on until it has proof otherwise to say no. But most of the time, it's going to find some evidence of that because it doesn't want my brain to think that it's going delusional. So your brain's going to filter what's in your environment to say, are you not a money person? If that's what you're telling yourself, which is why self-talk is like 90% of this, because it's like setting your ship one direction versus the other. There's very good likely your ship starts sailing in a direction once it's already pointed that way, even if the tide's going a different way, because that was 90% of the work, was orienting yourself toward where you're going. All right. So we do this with the AI tool too. And I'm not trying to make this a sales pitch. I just really encourage you guys to check it out. It mirrors your kind of language, right? It points out those patterns of, you're saying I can't afford it 7 times a week, right? Here's the reframe and the actual actions to show you how you can do it, which is what a coach would do. And then the result of that is then the identity shifts from a learner to a builder, maybe, because you're focused on doing. And if you had somebody that was constantly in your space, like a drill sergeant, right, in basic training, calling you out on the things you're doing wrong, that behavior is going to change rapidly, especially the quicker it is to when it happens, right? It's like a dog, right? If your dog pees on the floor, you got to, call your dog out on it or do whatever you got to do, put their nose in it or whatever they tell you to do with dogs. But if you wait like an hour and then you yell at your dog, the dog has no idea what it did wrong because it's not contextually aware to the issue at hand. You got to correct the behavior live. And so Nova does this with you guys. Every time you log in, it's calling that stuff out for you. So I think 2 minutes for that. That was a lot. We talked about misalignment with your identity, and then also the negative behaviors. So let's talk about each of those separately. For somebody locked in, right, as I'm not a money person, what do you think is one shift that would crack open that mindset based on either what I was talking about or maybe what you've seen before? Maybe I'm not a fitness person. You can replace that with whatever you want.
Yeah, I think you just need to reframe the way you say that. You could, instead of just definitizing yourself as not a money person or not a fitness person, you could just say, maybe you could just say to yourself, maybe it's not my favorite thing to go work out, or maybe it's not my favorite thing to go work at whatever is bringing me more money. But I'm capable of doing so. Like you don't have to constantly tell yourself, that this thing that you are just it's kind of like an excuse is what it sounds like to me when you first said that. But I think just changing the way you talk about certain things to yourself is, for me, like what makes it far easier for me to crack open, as you said, metaphorically, that understanding, and to be able to take those first steps towards making the change you want to see.
The thing that's just shot into my mind too is how important your environment is. And I just thought of the thing we always say: don't think of a pink elephant. Like, what is your brain about right now? It's probably thinking thinking something related to that, right? So your brain can't help but process information. It's just doing its job. If you're yelling at your brain for sponging up what's in your environment, then you're not really you're criticizing your ability to learn and to survive, honestly, because that's what's kept us alive. And in control of our surroundings. If you're at work, if you're at school, whatever it is, and your friends, your coworkers are in the same environment saying, yeah, I'm just so stressed about these bills, or I don't have time to do anything else, or I'm so tired. Your brain's still hearing the pink elephant, and you can say, I'm going to not focus on that. But if you're putting yourself in environments where you're going out and hanging out with people that are just saying this stuff all the time, criticizing your ability, maybe passive aggressively making comments that why are you doing all this business stuff? That's not who you are. You're still absorbing that, and it's making in the back of your mind the material, the case study, like it's preparing for court. So when you go say, am I an entrepreneur or not, you have this gut feeling of all this background information that's been processed on why you aren't. And that's all it needs. It just needs a sliver of evidence to deny your case to say you are. And it gets exponentially harder the more you surround yourself with people that put you back into those situations. So I think half of it too is just putting yourself in a position to recognize the behavior and then away from the people that are making it worse. Nova does that for you guys naturally by helping you recognize it. Whether or not you choose to fix your surroundings, I mean, could also be figured out by talking to Nova, but it's on you. Like you should know that these things don't just happen without a reason. Your anxiety is because you're not doing what you're meant to be doing and you feel wrong about it. And if you've put yourself in a better environment where you're actually working on something you thought was purposeful, I guarantee you wouldn't feel all the anxiety or stress that you are right now because you'd feel like you're on the right path. And so you have to be able to agree with who you say you are, even when all the evidence says otherwise. And that's the second part too. It's like, so what do you think someone I mean, I already know the answer. I think most people do. So I'm not going to ask it this way because I was going to say, why do you think most people, can't commit to their new identity? It's because you don't have the proof. But I guess what I'm trying to ask is, what would you say to somebody that's left their high school immature, whatever it is, mindset behind this, trying to step into this new identity and is trying to distance themselves from people that they know are bad, trying to distance themselves from bad comments that they absorb and negativity in general, but they haven't gotten to this endpoint? What would you tell them on this journey if they feel like it's kind of hopeless or they're not there yet?
Yeah. I think a lot of those feelings of maybe that it might be hopeless or that they just haven't achieved enough yet is because they still listen to the opinions of those that don't actually matter. I'll just say from my own experience in kind of crossing that chasm, metaphorically, it was the biggest challenge. The thing that I wish I just understood sooner was that like people that have something to say in a negative light about the work you do or this new persona you've taken on, or even just the goals that you have in comparison to what they think you should be doing. None of those people, like once you're an adult, like it's kind of just you and like whatever it is you want to actually have happen in this world that matters. And the opinions of, even to a certain degree, like the opinions of your parents. Like if you really want to achieve something and your parents are the ones telling you it's not possible, I'm sure they only say that because they have your best interest in heart, and in their mind they're falling for the same trap that you are, where it's like there's no proof that you are this person or can achieve it. You kind of just have to learn to shut that out. You have to learn to understand that no one in this world cares about you more than they care about themselves, except for maybe like your parents. And so like if that's true, then how would they know what's best for you like moving forward? Maybe they had a similar experience, but you have to be able to discern what actually matters as far as what you're intaking from people's opinions. And I think this
You want it to be too. Like
yeah, exactly.
it's not what you're told you have to be.
Should have shown the cat.
I feel like no, I feel like it's important that we talk about this because this is a meme and I think most people don't understand it properly. What do you think? What do you think out of this meme that's going around? Do you think most people are not getting on the surface level? Because I think there's a lot more going on than people don't process with this, especially with the cat. Earlier with the
There's
cat.
a ton more that go. Yeah, that's what I was just saying. I think people love. I send these memes to Caleb all the time. Just it's kind of funny you pulled that up, but they're. I think the incorrect but core belief about when they see these memes is that like it's destined already to end in a certain way. So just don't even waste your time. But that's actually not what like the purpose of this character in the movie is supposed to represent. It's more like everything has a definitive timeline. I know they say that all roads lead to Rome or whatever. That's like the associated tagline with this meme. What people don't understand also figuratively is that also means you could be starting in Rome and leave somewhere else because the roads are connected. I'm sure you have a better explanation as to like how the cat plays into that as well. But I think you sent me a meme about this earlier.
I did my own research on this because I'll show you the other side of this in a second. But just to talk about the rabbit, everything I would actually recommend rewatching, especially for this episode. Rewatch Alice, or just watch it if you haven't yet, because it's a really important story, especially the work itself, the literature, because it's 100+ years old and it still represents exactly what's going on, especially for people in our generation. I think that's why it's socially trending, because people are realizing how accurate it is. The rabbit represents, let's talk about the way he's dressed. He's wearing a suit, you got a nice blazer on, things like that, representing your ability and your the urge to need to fit in and look your best for society. It's societal expectations holding themselves out on you. It's pointing to a watch constantly. It's obsessed with time. Always in a hurry to be somewhere. That is society keeping you to its framework and its standards of not being late to meetings, always being on your best behavior, doing this, doing this. and it's anxious, right? It has this anxious rabbit-like energy and appearance because it is you feeling like you always have to be somewhere else than where you are now. Think about that. On the other side of this, you have a different character. You have the Cheshire Cat, and the goal of this cat is it's floating in and out of space. It's never in one spot because it doesn't measure itself in terms of I'm on time or I'm late. I'm either in society's expectations or I'm not. The cat measures itself as I'm here or I'm not here. I'm present or I'm not present, right? It appears or disappears. And so it reminds people that you need to be present in your situation with who you are and more importantly where you're at with your own success or not be. Like it's not a measure of how fast you're getting things done, how on time, how excellent you are compared to everybody else, compared to society's expectations of where you need to be, what Instagram says you have to do. It's how focused are you on your own tasks right now? Because the only people that win, ironically, are the people that don't give a shit about the time. They care about either being present with what they're trying to solve or do, or they're not entirely. And that is my breakdown of it, very simply. But you need to understand that you're judging yourselves a lot of times by the wrong standards. And actually, every single character in that story represents something. You see, like the Queen of Hearts, right? That is the inner oppressed, anger and frustration being taken out on other people, right? And then you have the soldiers or whatever, the playing cards or whatever. Those are the people in society that maybe just fit in, do their job, get paid, go along with everything. And then they turn into the Mad Hatter, which is another character, right? That represents somebody that plays along so well with the system, lives inside of this like fake society, this matrix that we talk about all the time. And they go crazy muttering just nonsense because all they hear is spreadsheets and briefings and business meetings and things like this. And they can't actually focus on anything they ever think is important. I want you guys to be tracking those things and understand why this meme is so popular. So next time you see it, don't just say like, oh, it's like funny because, old habits repeat. I want you to know that it's because you either choose to accept society's version of you or you craft your own damn version and you force society to say, I'm here or I'm not.
That was a great explanation. I love that that lesson you just said. Couldn't top that.
At the end of the day, let me say one more 30-second thing too, is that everything is made up. Like your job is just something you as a human being do for the day to kill time in the 24 hours a day. You could find food on a tree. You could find it, whatever. We just, say we got to keep busy doing something. You get paid money. That doesn't exist. It's just a concept somebody made up with. You wear clothes that somebody just designed. You don't have to wear the same clothes. There's nobody telling you have to wear this or that unless you agree that somebody has to tell you that by taking a job that somebody else came up with. Nothing really ever existed without somebody just having an idea and saying this is how it's going to be and nobody challenging that. Your whole goal to live a life that you choose is yours is to live based on the decisions you have. And if you feel like you're conflicted, there's an identity crisis, you're anxious, well, it's because of course you are. You've given up what you choose to be, which is free, and conforming yourself to a series of decisions that you just simply didn't make, but are now telling yourself you agree with when you didn't have any say in them. I mean, the government's the same way, and you can tell people are getting more and more frustrated because they didn't make a lot of these decisions, even though in the past they would have had a greater probably say an agreement toward the outcome. That's causing a lack of identity crisis among honestly our own country, but not only that, but the people inside. So when you understand that you do have control, that you can make that decision to change things again, that is when you feel good about yourself again. And a lot of you that aren't here yet, you need to say, I know it's hard. There's still FOMO of going out on the weekends and doing all this stuff, but you have to believe in this stronger than this. And that's what makes you the Mad Hatter and delusional because you have to step out. You have to be something that you aren't. And more importantly, focus on this and not be concerned with what society cares about it. You have to leave the rabbit behind and say, I'm here. This is my new identity. Call me insane if you want, but this is what I'm going with. I'm trying to, because I didn't alley-oop myself into something. So there's three things: expose, reframe, and take action.
That's my bad. I didn't know you were talking. You can continue.
No, you go ahead. I think it's my computer, honestly, or you might be bugging, but go ahead and reset what you were saying.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, at this point in society, like, with how much information is out there and, like, people like Caleb and I, they're just giving you free game right now. I mean, it's not even like you don't know what to do. You kind of just have to, it's not even a matter of planning anymore. We talked about earlier in the podcast, that's what most people are spending, most entrepreneurs self-acclaimed are spending their time doing. But it doesn't even come down to that anymore. Like, you know exactly what to do. And for the most part, if you've ever just asked yourself what it is that you want from life, you know what that is too. The difference is like at this point, it's not about knowing. You just have to take action. You have to actually do something in conjunction with the fact that you now know that everything around you is just also the adverse effect of, or the effect rather, of somebody else that took an action to make their idea come to fruition. It's completely attainable, and people do it all the time. If you just look around, like you could trace anything in your room back to somebody's idea that they had that they wanted to see be brought to fruition, and they did. They didn't spend time planning about it. They didn't spend time questioning what it is they should do. You know what to do. You just need to do it, is what it comes down to. I just wanted to add that on top of what you said. Because once you get to that point of realizing everything is only as you perceive it, and you have the ability to alter your perceptions, you're left with nothing else. There should be no thinking what to do next. You just got to do it, you know?
Yeah, I can't name one. I mean, name one activity otherwise that's like that you don't get rewarded from playing a role in its progress or success, like entrepreneurship, fitness, studies, right? Going through school. Like there's nothing that doesn't reward you the more you put effort and focus into it. And so that's the really only way to win. And you have to stop caring about the things that are putting you back in the rabbit's position, the nice suit coat, the expectations, the watch, the pressure. That's great. And honestly, that's what got me here. That's what got me to the Air Force Academy, is my high expectations and standards on myself. You still need that, but you got to balance it by with also capitalizing on the cat's perspective. Otherwise, all of the stuff you do here has no meaning unless you step into the cat's side of the role and say, if you want to start a family, right, and you're constantly still rushing to go out and take business calls and stuff, you're not really a man, in my opinion, unless you spend time with your family and you're giving back to your own family. So like, unless you're being present and here and you're able to measure yourself by those standards too, you're only going to be stuck in the anxious. And of course, the cat's in no rush to be anywhere. It's kind of just experiencing everything. It's probably the only character in that wonderland that actually enjoys itself there, for that reason. So just be conscious of what you're saying to yourself and how high your expectations are. Trust me, I know, and be able to give it the time and space it needs. There's three ways, three things I said before: exposure, reframe it, and take action. My action steps for you are: go to Altura, or when the Nova app drops here pretty soon, start talking to Nova's AI instead of ChatGPT and Gemini. There's a lot of like information dropping now in the market. That's why you probably shouldn't trust ChatGPT as much anymore. Grok's all right too, but use something that you can build with and that can help build you. Stop giving your information away and use a real AI tool that we're trying to develop, and keep your information secure and private, and actually use it to grow and develop yourself. Nova will help you expose yourself, step one, to your flaws. Step two is going to be reframing it. It's going to tell you exactly what tasks or what outcomes you need to focus on, as if it were a mentor. And it's the same framework I'll use too. My light just died back there. To make yourself better, or to actually get yourself out of this hole. What are the patterns behind why I'm saying I don't feel like I understand money so much, right? This is the deeper pattern, the behavioral pattern. And then step three is action. Nova will recommend a task to you to help get over that, or help push you to the next phase. That's scheduling 5 calls by the end of the week, or something specific like DMing 10 people today. And you add that to your calendar and then go down the list and execute. You guys don't have to sit there trying to figure out what you should be working on, what kind of business you need to start, all this stuff. You get to win all in one process. And so that is the benefit of being in our space. Plus, you have the people, the community, the networking, the funding, whatever you guys need to help get your business off the ground. And it's in one place. And that's why that was my vision. That was my thing that I came up with. Anthony then came in, and together we built this giant present full of mini goodies to hand to you guys. And I want you guys to use that. It's a tool, but you need to take control of it now. Your brain has been the boss. And you need to be able to understand its flaws too, because every person, everything has them. And to move on to the next step, you just got to troubleshoot it the same way we've been doing that with our website. Fire it, if it's fire the bad sides of it, the bad employees behind the scenes, and hire Nova to fix them. That's all I got. My final line before I'll bring it over to Anthony for final comments is: we talked about crypto trust being greater than the bank trust way back at the beginning, because people are done being controlled. They want decentralization. They want control back over their information, which seems to be given out more and more. They want control over their finances, their life, but they're too afraid to take it when the opportunity comes. This is the spoon-fed path forward from, for once, a company that's not trying to raid your pockets. right? We are charging you money, but that's actually safer than saying it's free like ChatGPT, where you become the product and your data gets sold to advertisers or systems that use you to sell you products that they know they can manipulate you into buying. We charge you a straight fee. We protect your stuff. We help you grow and we work together. Get an NFT too. It's lifetime access into our brother, sisterhood, mentorship, and where we'll get to meet with you in the real world and truly start to ascend. Anthony, what you got?
It's I just want to hit on something that you said earlier, which is when you were talking about the difference between somebody like the giants of the industry, like Iman, and the guy next to you that you may or may not know is actually going through the same struggle, the same battle that you are. It just might be, a step or two ahead. Doing any business dealings with relationship building. And so I love that Caleb has people that are really like just a few steps ahead of like anybody else that's trying to get on their feet as well right now. I love this. I love that we hop on once a week and we can give the perspective of someone who's like freshly, I mean, me personally, Caleb's farther than I am as far as the progression goes, but as someone who's like fresh to this idea that you can actually, if you want to see a change in your life, it's as simple as you taking action instead of just constantly falling through the cycle of finding any sort of reason as to why you can't do it now and procrastinating until it's too late. And then, you just kind of go through the same cycle. You procrastinate and you plan and you procrastinate and plan. That's all a side note. But in the spirit of transparency, like it's truly just a couple of people, Caleb and I, that are also working to develop or building something that's, in the future going to be, whether you're a part of it or not, making its name in space in $1 billion industry that already exists and it is only growing and is getting bigger. And it's possible for you to join too. What it comes down to is just like, are you willing to take action when it's presented to you? And it's not coming, all I'm trying to say is this is not coming from a position of like a high pedestal or a position of, I've never seen this before, but right now we're literally the people and we're doing the work so that we can provide an easier path forward for people like you, as if you were watching this, that are interested in entrepreneurship, to go to essentially accomplish what we have in a fraction of the time it took us to do it, is the best way I could describe what it is we're offering at this point in time. So that's all I wanted to add to that, is that as transparent as we can be, like we're the same, like we are you are us. We're the same kind of people that are just working to get together with some like-minded entrepreneurs, figure out what works moving forward in this time where it's kind of uncertain, what's going to be the standard moving forward as far as business operation in the systems that we've had for however. And you can solidify your spot for a lifetime through NFT ownership or through monthly access if that's what you prefer. But it exists, it's out there, and we're handing it to you right now. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
All right, guys, we'll see you on the inside. Access is free if you just want to dip your toe in and try it out. But again, you only really make it happen by going full diving and exploring and taking the benefit on from the start and accepting the challenge of, I put 20 bucks in this. It's got to pay off. So let's work and make it happen. Those micro commitments, reinforce your identity as much as it does. Just give you access to stuff. So we'll see you on the inside. I'll be there to answer questions. You can book a call with us and get your personal questions answered. We'll get on the phone with you if you have any concerns about what our community is doing and you want to just get clarity on that stuff. And we will see you, the two of us will see you together next Monday. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. And I hope you have a great Veterans Day coming up and, start to your week here. As always, I'm rooting for you. Take care.